What's going on, everybody? Jack Acid with ApexHead.com, bringing you episode 6 of the F1 2012 Zero to Hero Career Mode series. And today, Lotus hoping for a P22 finish or better. Starting off in the back of the grid here, looking at the back of the HRT cars. And want to be very, very careful coming up into turn 1, no question about it. Not a lot of real estate here in Monaco. Definitely going to be a challenge to try and compete for a podium. As we slice our way through down here at turn 1, contact from behind, but no damage apparent. Now trying to get around Timo Glock and Nico Hulkenberg, sandwiched by both Marussia cars. Now that breaks apart, and almost coming into the back of Nico Hulkenberg there as Timo Glock is able to get ahead of both Force Indias. Now trying to come around on the outside of DiResta, coming around turn 3, and almost into the back of the Marussia car, coming around Casino. And up into P19 as we come down the hill. A little bit of wheel spin coming out of the exit. Very, very slow corner here. And tipping Kobayashi coming around Mirabu. And he does not spin out. And we are extremely fortunate. No penalty as we come around the Grand Hotel hairpin. And was basically holding my breath. It was almost like slow motion there. But fortunately, Kobayashi does not spin out. So now coming around Portier. And pretty good exit speed coming through the tunnel. Let's see if we can get around Kobayashi here. Not a lot of real estate. And contact here, trying to regain control of the car. And into the barrier, taking off our front wing, at least partially. Now coming in way too fast down to the Nouvelle chicane. And somehow avoiding the corner cut and falling in behind Kobayashi. Obviously a very ugly sequence, and I'm lucky that I'm still in the race. So now settling in, coming through turn 13 and now through the swimming pool. And trying to get cinched back up with the field, coming around to the chicane there. And now coming through Rascasse for the first time. Very difficult corner. Able to get caught up with Kobayashi. Don't want to make any kind of a move coming through turn 17 or 18, but now putting our foot down. And of course, it's only the end of lap 1, so no opportunity for DRS, but this will be our chance. And want to be very careful coming down into turn 1. Have to brake there. And Sergio Perez falling behind now. And able to slingshot following Petrov coming up the hill here. And finally Perez slowing down now. And trying to get around Petrov and more contact, but he does not spin out. Another scary moment as we come around Casino. And going a little bit wide there, and Perez very keen to get back around. And darting on the inside of Petrov coming around turn 5. And able to get in front of the Caterham. Now chasing down Jean-Eric Verne as we get a purple sector time through sector 1. Chasing down the Toro Rosso coming around turn 7. And hoping that we can reel him in coming through the tunnel, much like we did with Kobayashi, but going to be a little less aggressive this time around. Want to make sure we don't have any kind of problems coming through the apex here. And a little bit of problem with the grip coming out of the exit, but able to regain our composure as we come down to the braking point. And yes, able to get in front of the Toro Rosso up into P13. So able to take Jean-Eric Verne at one of the only places where you can overtake in real life on this track, coming through turn 12, also known as Tabak. Very, very tricky corner for me. I've spun out many, many times as we're able to get a purple sector 2 and caught all the way up with Felipe Massa here as we come around Rascasse, getting chased by the Toro Rosso. Do not want to make contact with Felipe Massa, and again, want to be careful coming up through this corner. Definitely had a small window there, but didn't want to take any chances, burning off the rest of our curves. And we should be able to get around the Ferrari before we get back into turn 1, and yes, we will, as long as we don't make contact with the car in front of us. Able to slow down and contact from behind, but not with me. Some kind of commotion at the bottom of the hill there, but we're not going to worry about that. Up into P11, chasing down Bruno Senna as we come through turn 3 and trying to keep him in our sights as we come down the hill here. And let's see if we can get him coming down into turn 5. And wheel to wheel coming through turn 5, avoiding contact, able to get in front of the Williams. And now falling in behind Daniel Ricciardo in the Toro Rosso. Now up into the points, P10 for now, but of course only lap 3. And let's see if we can get around Ricciardo coming out of turn 8. He's very slow on the exit and able to get up hip to hip with the Toro Rosso. Looks like we're going to be neck and neck coming around the apex and somehow keeping it clean and pulling ahead of him now. And hoping to keep things on the rails coming down to the hard braking point of the Nouvelle chicane and able to drop in behind Maldonado in the Williams car. And let's see if we can get around him up at turn 12. It's wide but slippery, not going to have any opportunity. And don't want to take any chances, especially this early on. Now coming through the swimming pool. And not able to get around Maldonado, but skipping ahead just a handful of seconds here. Coming down at the start of lap 4. Coming down into turn 1. Trying to get around Maldonado. And losing my braking point and sliding straight off into the runoff. And this is a complete disaster. Several cars getting by. Now having to actually back up yet again just to get out on the track here and dropping in behind Paul DiResta. who's in P18, so he's getting back on tarmac in P19, and that's just about the worst thing that could have happened, short of actually doing severe damage to the car. But now I've got it all to do after getting such a strong start for the first 3 laps there. So now chasing down Paul DeRest. Let's see if we can get around on the inside here at turn 5. No problems there. Now trying to chase down Timo Glock and the Marussia, coming around the Grand Hotel hairpin and settling in behind Glock. Let's see if we can use the tunnel as a familiar staging ground for overtakes. Now speeding up, coming out of the exit, and going to try and overtake on the inside. Glock backing off now and almost coming into contact with the left-hand side there, but thankfully able to avoid it. But braking way too late, coming down into the chicane and sliding through the chicane. And no warning from the steward, surprisingly. I guess it was not considered a strategic advantage, so very, very fortunate to not get a penalty for that. But now skipping ahead to lap 5, trying to chase down Kobayashi coming through turn 5. And remember, we almost spun Kobayashi out at that very corner on lap 1. Don't want to make up for it now by some kind of a mistake. You can see following very, very closely. And in front of Kobayashi, surprisingly, is Henki Kovalainen in the Caterham. So now getting around the Sauber. Where are we? Wheel to wheel coming through the tunnel. And Kobayashi finally backing off now. Pretty clean run through the tunnel. Trying to get caught up with the Caterham and not going to have enough room. There's actually 2 Caterhams. Now cutting off the corner of the chicane. Kovalainen not giving me any room there. And again, no warning from the steward. So now skipping to the end of lap 5, start of lap 6. And DRS activated, Kurz burned off as we get a purple sector time coming into turn 1. Very aggressive move here with Kovalainen. And able to avoid a penalty and get in front of him up into P15. That was a little aggressive, but looked like he sped up as we were coming out of the exit. Thought I'd have a much better chance. And losing it here, coming through turn 3, and composing ourselves to get through Casino. Not losing a position, but almost taking off our front wing and damaging our tires as we try and get around Vitaly Petrov now. So surprisingly, the Caterham's putting up a decent fight here at Monaco. Of course, it is Monaco, which means there's going to be some kind of anomaly, as there always is. So now trying to get around Petrov coming through the tunnel, and a familiar scene, should be able to take him on the inside and not backing off, and almost contact with the right-hand side of the wall. And Petrov not backing off until we get all the way to the bottom of the hill, but able to settle in behind Sergio Perez in the Sauber, up into P14 now, coming through turn 12. And let's see what we can do coming down to the swimming pool. Haven't had any problems here just yet. And don't want to jinx myself by saying that, getting a purple sector 2 yet again, and coming through Rascast for the 6th time. Let's see if we can stick with Sergio Perez and then overtake him before turn 1. That would be ideal. And activating the DRS here. Don't have any curves left, but we'll have no problem overtaking on the left-hand side as long as we don't have any problems coming down into turn 1. Getting a purple lap time, no problems with Jean-Eric Byrne. And now speeding up the hill. And let's see if we have any problems. Very, very bumpy coming up here. See how we do here at Massenet, where we had problems before. And handling it pretty smooth coming through Casino. So now want to make a move on Jean-Eric Verne coming down into turn 5 and wheel-to-wheel coming around the corner. And able to get ahead of the Toro Rosso and come in behind the Ferrari. Felipe Massa just ahead. And we are currently up in P12. Bruno Senna and the Williams in front of Massa. And should have a chance to overtake Massa coming through the tunnel. Let's see what happens, accelerating out and using Kurz. And being told that there is minor front wing damage to one of the cars. Not sure who it is, but able to overtake the Ferrari. Coming down into the braking zone, and very, very close call here. And somehow not getting a penalty for coming into the side of Bruno Senna. Again, not tipping him. Thought I had a window there and realized I didn't. Tried to slow down and made contact, but fortunately avoid the penalty. And yet again, a very, very close call that goes my way. So obviously not able to get the position, but at least no problems until that. Now taking off our front wing, and had to think for a split second there, do I jump in or not? Remember, I haven't gone into pit yet, so deciding to go ahead and stay out on the broken wing. And just like on lap 7, Bruno Senna and I coming together at the bottom of the Nouvelle chicane, but this time able to get around the Williams and up into P10, trying to be very, very careful. Remember, I do have a completely damaged front wing, and my tires are very worn out, and we are scheduled to pit at the end of this lap, as you can see the indicator now. And honestly, the front wing, not as bad of a problem as you might think here at Monaco, although I am being very, very careful. But typically, the broken front wing causes a lot of understeer, I've noticed, on circuits where you're going a lot faster than here. So, not as big of an issue, but that doesn't mean that I don't want it fixed, that's for sure. Any small mistake here at Monaco could be the difference of finishing the race or not. So want to definitely make sure that the car is behaving exactly as we expect as we get out in just over 6 seconds. Pretty slow stop there, losing a position to Massa, but of course we do have the front wing change. And rejoining here all the way down into P20 as we come around turn 1 and not going to be able to get around. Looks like Charles Peak and the Marussia chasing the back markers up the hill coming out of our pit stop. And typically you have a chance to overtake here on the outside as long as you can hold your line, getting around Charles Peak. And now lined up wheel to wheel with Nico Hulkenberg coming through Casino and finally able to pull ahead of him now. And coming in way too hot here at turn 5, almost making contact with the barrier as we try and settle in behind Felipe Massa coming around the hairpin. And maybe we will have a chance to overtake Massa coming through the tunnel. And Massa very slow through here, trying to overtake here at Portier. And wheel spin problems coming out of the exit. Here comes the Ferrari on the left-hand side, but he finally falls back now. And not sure if you heard it earlier, but the engineer has warned that rain is on the way within the next 10 minutes or so. And if you look at the sky, you can see it is very, very gray. And 10 minutes falls in line with probably before the end of the race as we compete with Carthagena coming around turn 12. But that's a very difficult spot to overtake as we compete with the HRT car, as Sebastian Vettel would call Carthagena a gherkin. But regardless of that, he is a back marker, and hopefully we'll have a chance to overtake him at the start-finish stretch here. Would like to beat him before we get to turn 1 and get stuck behind him. So now activating the DRS. Kerr's on its way for a recharge and overtaking a couple of cars here coming out of the pit road up into P14, now competing with Sergio Perez and the Sauber as we come around turn 1. And Sergio Perez, very slow. Remember, on those cold tires. Let's see if we can find a window coming up the hill. Very, very bumpy coming up through here. Looking on the outside of Massenet, not a lot of room there. Going to follow him through Casino and see if we can get him down at turn 5. And typically been overtaking on the inside. Going to try the outside here and wheel to wheel coming through. And very close contact there, finally having to fall back before we get to the hairpin, and look how close we are coming around. There is no question we'll have a chance to overtake him before we get to the tunnel. In fact, almost had a chance to overtake him right there, but now speeding out and dispatching of the Sauber with no problem. And we are up into P13, halfway through the race. So again, when is this rain going to hit as we watch the laps tick by here at the start of lap 11 coming around? And more cars in the pit lanes, able to get a couple of spots, coming in behind Bruno Senna and the Williams. And once again, looking up here at turn 3 and able to get around and contact there with the wall. Slight damage to the wing. Going a little bit too fast, so that's not going to require a pit stop, thankfully, but too aggressive there. And shooting in front of Bruno Senna here to get up into P10, coming around Mirabeau. And so now staring at the back of Daniel Ricciardo and the Toro Rosso, chasing him down here at the start of lap 12 using the DRS. Let's see if we can get him at turn 1. And yes, we are able to, just barely avoiding the barrier coming up the hill. But that's good for P9 all the same. So now skipping ahead to lap 13 and chasing down Pastor Maldonado. And have to note that the Williams cars have been running pretty well so far this season, or seem to in this game. I wonder if that's going to get updated in the next release, as it should, as we're able to shoot in front of Maldonado coming around turn 8. And that gets us up into P8, so now skipping ahead to lap 15, and now we've caught up with Fernando Alonso on the Ferrari coming around turn 7. And let's see if we can get around Fernando coming through the tunnel. Looks like we should have a chance. We've seen this scene 1,000 times already in the race. And able to get in front of him. Now let's see if we can hold our line coming down to the braking point here. And yellow flag here. And there's a car stranded on the track. I believe that was Henkki Kovalainen. Is pointed nose first into the barrier and stopped right there. So yellow flag conditions coming through the chicane, which could be tricky. It's one of the only spots to actually overtake. So let's see what happens, how long it takes for that to clear up as we come through some of the final corners. And trying to stick with Rosberg and going a little bit too wide and bouncing off our wheel. And there's Fernando Alonso to exploit on the inside. And now wheel to wheel coming through turn 18. Both of us activating DRS and having fallen behind now. Here at the start of lap 16, let's see if we can get him down here at the braking point. and trying to find room and going a little bit too fast. Are we going to hit the wall? No, we're not, but Fernando Alonso able to get back in front of us. So it's definitely game on for P7, and coming around Casino, sliding into the wall, and there goes the front wing. It was slightly damaged, now it's completely damaged, and I'm going to have to think about going in, but it is starting to sprinkle. We are now starting to see rain, and so I'm reluctant to go in for my wing just yet to see what we have to do with the tires, if anything. As we come around turn 8, trying to accelerate to take out Alonso, and you can see that we are a little bit slower than usual. We should have a chance to overtake Alonso at the apex there, and we're able to get in front of him. And thankfully, no damage or collision. And Kovalainen still park at the Nouvelle chicane. So another yellow flag as we come through there, and that's a little unusual. Usually that type of thing is cleaned up, and all kinds of problems coming out of Tabak. And there goes Fernando Alonso. And we lost all of our traction because of the rain coming through turn 12 there. And things just not going my way here on lap 18. Probs coming out of turn 8 and having a chance to overtake Alonso, squandered there because of the conditions, and going ahead and sending my engineer a call for intermediate tires in case I do have to go in. Only 2 laps to go, but the road is extremely slippery. And now you can see damaged wing, worn out tires, and absolutely no traction. And look at this, all kinds of commotion coming out of turn 1. There's Lewis Hamilton able to get around him. And now all of a sudden we're up into P7, yellow flag, and overtaking Rosberg, ignoring it as we get a green flag. And now I'm up into P6. Now coming through turn 3 behind our teammate Kimi Räikkönen and almost sliding into the barrier. And you can see just how miserable the conditions are. I have no traction. As soon as I put my foot down on the gas, my tires just spin. So at this point, much more concerned about finishing the race and not spinning out. I'm going to go ahead and just walk it in for P6. As we avoid contact with the wall, barely coming around the hairpin, and Nico Rosberg not going away. He was going to make a move there, but able to get in front of him, and I've never seen traffic this slow at Monaco. Basically, it's not just because we're being careful, it's because of no traction. Now getting some grip on the dry road coming through the tunnel, but of course now coming down to one of the most dangerous parts of the circuit. This is the final lap. Don't want to slide through the chicane, and another yellow flag. And sliding in behind our teammate and thankfully avoiding contact. And now Kimi's slowing down. It looked like he got held up because of Kovalainen parked there. And despite the yellow flag, I had nowhere else to go. I shot ahead of him, so up into P5. And now skipping ahead just a handful of corners, going a little bit wide here at Raskas. And there's Kimi. Now coming around turn 17, an extremely tricky entry point. You can see just how slow we're going, trying to get some grip. There's Räikkönen. And finally able to get some grip, and we will be able to finish this race in P5 in the pouring rain here at Monaco. In one of the strangest races I've ever participated in. Leave it to Monaco. Hands definitely sore after this race. So despite not getting points in the last 2 races, finally able to break that spell and finish P5, good for 10 points here. And that will help us get back into the chase after 6 rounds. Taking a look at the race results, and Lewis Hamilton disqualified, both McLarens not finishing. Remember, Hamilton was turned sideways late in the race, so he must have done something that caused that. I'm guessing he might have slid into the back of somebody given the poor weather conditions. And yes, we are currently running P4 right now behind Sebastian Vettel, 22 points ahead of us. Hopefully we can build on this result heading into Canada, heading off into North America. Hope you guys would join me in Montreal to see what we can do from here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you soon.